965, session 41 with TVP on 7/26/85.
We are here and ready to begin.
Welcome. We're delighted to be in touch again. We have noticed, and I think Winter also has noticed, that the first session that she does when she comes to the lab is somewhat different from later sessions. I assume that relates to the fact that she's just not quite moved away from her busy life outside. Can you tell us what's happening during this process of her settling down or whatever it is?
For the most part, the only time that Winter channels in this format is here in the lab. The other times when we get opportunity to speak, she is not as aware of it, and therefore it is much easier. Once she settles into the lab, she is very focused on the unnaturalness of the situation, and it takes a few moments for us to remove that part of her personality that wants to interfere. We feel we are getting better with this, and it takes time. We feel that in the future, as she becomes more involved with work elements that are similar, the first lab session will be as good as the last.
Yes, thank you. Is the kind of contact that you have with her during a lab session any different from the kind of contact that you have with her outside the lab?
The lab session, this is paradoxical in some ways and easier. In some ways is more difficult. The problem outside the lab is she does not always listen, whereas in the lab she does her own thing and we are free to do our own thing. Outside of the lab, when she is working or fully into a reading, we have control of the verbal content of what is said. As we do in the lab once we get her to the proper space.
Outside the lab, when she's going about her ordinary living, and are there times when you wish to contact her directly or do that? And if so, how does that work?
She hears very clearly. We do not feel there is a problem in contacting. At times there may be a problem when she must stop and balance whether the information we give her is truly from us or something she is picking up or another thought form. If we cannot get her attention for something that is very important, we put it into the dream state, and then she will clearly retain and take notice. We sometimes do this frequently if we are sending a message and she chooses to ignore it.
Is the process one by which you try to reach her consciousness, or how would you describe that?
Yes, it is always bringing the thought forms that she and you, when your guides are working with you, are working to bring to the conscious level that bit of information that is not quite at the surface yet, but is very well known to your soul, your spirit. Until we bring it to the fully conscious level, she is not free to act upon it in any responsible manner. She may act upon some things without knowing why she is doing so, but if she is aware of why she is acting, then much more growth and development can take place.
What about the process of her trying to contact you? Is there, are you always available to her? Should she try to, does she need simply to state her intent, or how does that process work?
We are always there. It is a more of a shift when she wants to hear our opinion. It is a very quick process of relaxing and shifting and looking or listening to what we have to say. We have had no problems in this aspect.
At this point, she does not need to be in a meditative state to be in touch with you?
This is correct.
Mm-hmm. I see. So just in her ordinary dealings in the world, she is able to make that contact whenever she so wishes.
This is correct. We do not say she always does it. For example, if she loses something, she will spend an hour looking for what she has lost, when all she has to do is shift and look, and she can see where she misplaced it. On occasion, when she reaches the frustration level, she will do that. At other times, she tends to be like most humans and search in vain. This is true of everyone. We work through winter in our teaching to teach people that sources of information are but an eye blink away. It is very easy to tap into if people would trust and believe what they're hearing. Very easy.
Yes, it doesn't always seem so from this side. When you communicate with others other than Winter, are the processes any different than those you use with her at this time?
It depends upon the person, of course, and the level. Yes, there are some that we can only communicate with in the dream state. They would not accept what they think or hear at a more conscious level. There are some that we communicate with strictly with a thought form, never any words or verbal content, as Winter is aware of. And there are some that we communicate with strictly through a sensing that has no pictures and has no hearing. It is strictly a feeling that cannot be explained.
What would make the difference, whether you choose one of these methods or another?
Well, actually, we have to try them all and see what gets through. What we're doing is not so different from forms that are working with you and other humans. We do whatever works, and we keep trying until we see what the individual picks up on. There is evidence in one's planets as to whether they will receive communication visually or whether they will hear it this can also be checked out. It also is a learning process for the individual, for his growth in this particular stage of development, that perhaps in this life the person must learn only sensing mannerisms, and therefore purposely he does not have the visual pictures that some get.
Oh, very good. One of our continuing interests, and we've asked a number of questions in this area in the past, but has to do with the relationship between the brain and the mind. And I had a few other questions in that kind of realm today.
This is fine. You're full of questions today. Was this a result of your surgery?
I don't think so. But I'm not sure. I always try to think of some questions before our sessions.
Very good. Proceed. You want us to answer the question between the brain and the mind and the unconscious.
Well, in that general realm, I have a number of questions. For example, one of the things that we have been told is that physiologically we have three brains: the reptilian brain, the somewhat later developed mammalian brain, and then the still later developed neocortex. And we understand that we still use all of these in our operations from time to time. And I'm interested in the relationship between that kind of physiological concept and how our mind works. Now, I don't know if that's too vague a question, but...
No, it is not too vague. What your scientists are going to find as they probe more and more is something that we have said before, and that you have certainly heard from various elements on your planet, is that the brain is like a radio. It is full of receptors and chemicals and neurons that work to pick up those elements which are outside of the brain. And if you wish, you might call the mind being that component which the brain is in. We see the mind as being everything, just as we see the body being within the soul, so to speak. We feel that the brain is a very intricate system of neurons designed to tap into all the information that the universe holds. We do not see, feel, and in fact, we know that the more the scientists probe looking for exactly what it is in the brain that helps one pick up on other channels, all they will find will be certain nuclei and cells. They will not find a particular area of the brain that for some strange reason can tap into the future. What they will find is the more that one works with the mind, and in the areas that you are exploring right now, the more specific types of brain cells that will be developed, the more specific chemicals that will be contained and developed, and the better for reaching out into other systems. As you are aware, the Russians at this point are on their tangent of the mind and the electrical processes and everything being electrical. In some ways, this is totally correct. What they are missing is the element of who we are and what we can do for humanity. And for this reason, they will not get as far as they think. Indeed, they will find themselves at a wall, and there is no need to worry that they will invent equipment or other pieces of instruments that will control the human mind, because the mind is much vaster than all the Russians could ever put together, and one human mind has nothing to do with all the other multitudes of minds. Indeed, if they can control minds with a machine, they would be controlling their own as well. We got off on a tangent.
You're speaking of minds there and not brain.
This is correct. We look at the brain as just being the radio, the part of the body that, as you are aware, tunes in and picks up signals. We believe, well, to clarify, the Russians do not have a concept between mind and brain, and they feel that the mind is within the brain and that they can therefore control it. We see it all as one large, universal thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, for example, again, trying to clarify this mind and brain for me, with an explorer in the booth now, and we suggest that the individual lets their consciousness move away from their physical body and perhaps even away from their mental body, or at least the mental chatter, in order for the process to occur, which is occurring now. I assume that what we're dealing with there is mind, but I'm wondering what happens with the brain when this is occurring.
The brain is working to tune into the vibrations which we need in order to speak. The brain is like a circuit that we adjust along with the other parts of the body when we raise vibrations and run energy, and that is what is taking place. The consciousness of the explorer can do what it likes, or we will help it move out to another time and space, or stand aside and just watch what we are doing. With each explorer, it is a little different. Sometimes Winter is here, at other times she is not. It all depends on the mood, and all depends on what we feel she needs. Many times we just put her consciousness to sleep, so to speak, and this way we can regenerate it and recharge her batteries and work with the physical body. So let us see if we can find a better example of a converter, a type of converter. If you would imagine that when we come to speak to you, we are energy waves and thought forms, but we need to process those so you understand. Then we plug into the brain and send in the thought forms and the energy waves, and those, in fact, are then translated into vibrations which you hear as words that you understand. In truth, many of the things that we send to you are not in the words, but are between the words and are in thought forms that you're getting while the explorer is in the lab. We are very limited with the words that you get, as you are aware, and we have to do the best we can, and often it is more energy we are sending than actual verbal information. Does this help?
Yes, that's helpful. But then what I'm hearing is that it's very important that you're very much using the brain in your transmissions. This is the agent through which we hear your voice.
This is correct.
Mm-hmm.
This is correct. We do not just come in and start to use the voice box, because we are searching for the elements of vocabulary that are within the brain patterns and the energy that is there to communicate with you. But again, we see it more as just typing or punching keys to send out what we want you to hear.
And is it the brain that is creating the vibrations that make the words? Did I understand you correctly?
We tune into it and plug into it, and it converts the vibrations that we send in into the words and forms that you understand.
Mm-hmm.
The brain itself, just if it sat without other help, would not be very useful to us. This is not something that is understood by scientists who study the brain. They do not realize that everything does not originate in the brain. It just picks it up and sends it on.
Mm-hmm. I think this is important in the distinction that we often run into with explorers, particularly new explorers, who want to know whether they are stimulating their brain to bring this forth, or whether there is some additional force somehow involved.
No, this goes back to the old question of whose thought is it? Is it my thought, or is it your thought, or is it a universal thought that we all have? And this is a problem all explorers must work through. It might be helpful if in working with the new ones, you can get them to give you some information about something that they have no concept of, and see if it can be checked out. In this way, they will know that even if they are, quote, stimulating their brain, it is accurate. But over time, they will learn that they are not. They are just tuning in.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
We are sorry for continually interrupting you today.
I'm glad that you have a lot to say today. That makes me very happy.
Very good.
Another question in this general area of the connection between mind and brain is the question of memory. How does memory? How does memory function? Is it a totally physiological process there operating in the brain, or is memory somehow more? Is it better to think of it as an existence in the mind?
It is better to think of it in the mind, although we are aware of the Penfield experiments where probing the brain gives out various information. But all this did was just trigger people to believe that they could recall certain information and bring it back. But it is stored in the mind, and the brain, the various parts of the brain, are just a way of focusing on the area that one wishes to bring back the information from.
How does that process occur when we, for example, typically we're not aware of many of the events of our early childhood, but under some very unusual circumstances, those memories are brought in. How does that occur?
There are many things on your planet that will re-trigger a certain memory, and you are able to send a message to the mind, just as you might ask a question in a dream, but with present life memories, you believe that you can call them up, and they're called up very rapidly as a certain smell of food or a certain place, such as a country road that is dirt and a lot of grass and red clay, that suddenly triggers a childhood memory of yours. This type of element is by both the senses that you have on your planet and a triggering which tells the mind to look for it. We like the example of the little man who sits there reading a book and is asleep until you say, "Find so-and-so," and he jumps up and runs through the files to find the answer that you're looking for. And of course, sometimes he knows exactly where he can put his hands on it, and other times he has to look for several hours before he finds the information that you wish.
Another mental phenomenon that's interesting to us is things that suddenly appear without apparent meaning in our mind. an example yesterday in the laboratory, completely without any kind of stimulation I was aware of. I saw this very clear image of my yellow sewing basket in my mind, and it was as though it was simply hanging there in my consciousness for quite a period of time, and it seems to relate to nothing, but it was simply hanging around.
No, there is always meaning in your messages and in the symbols that your guardians or unconscious brings forth to tell you. The sewing basket could be, for example, just a message to you that you're amending nicely. You need to look to see what your own symbols mean, but it is not an accident that it suddenly pops up. Sometimes it is the only way we have to get your attention, and so what you're doing is you're focusing your attention, but you're doing it in a very logical manner, as opposed to looking to what the meaning of a sewing basket is trying to tell you. If you looked further, you might possibly earlier have had some thoughts of healing or physical healing or bending, and the basket was a message to you that you are doing nicely.
Yes, I think the mending idea, that hadn't occurred to me, and that would be very appropriate.
You must always pay attention. It is difficult even in dreams and other moments, but if you were to take notice and write down each such silly little thing that popped in, you would find reference points, and you would discover that there is meaning behind them. All we have to work with on this side are symbols that you recognize. If we start sending you symbols from our side, they will be totally meaningless, and you will think that it is time for you to visit the institution of your choice, so to speak, and this is not so. So we select things from your environment to give you little messages. This is how we talk to you, but we do talk a lot, and you humans do not always want to hear.
Well, I guess that's true. It seems to us like we want to hear perhaps more than we do, but we fill our lives with other stimuli.
This is true, but often what we are saying comes very subtly and is very quiet, and you may think it is so mundane, or it is something that you know, that you do not pay attention to the message we are sending over. We do send lots of messages, and our messages are not always just those on the highest spiritual plane, but often our messages have things to do with your daily life and how to make it easier.
Yes, we are grateful for those messages. We have some questions that Dr. Phelan has sent. The name I think given to him was Alakar. He continues to ask some questions that are of help to him in his practice as a doctor.
This is good.
All right. The first question: how does the physical disease process in Alzheimer's relate to the spiritual process of the soul trying to leave the body before its time?
Well, the problem here is one of vocabulary, and with what is time, the soul knows when it is time for it to leave the body. Oftentimes, for one reason or another, there is a conflict with the body and the soul. There are those who work through with Alzheimer's disease, and some element of the soul is still within the body. Oftentimes, if you will look at the disease itself, it is the left hemisphere, so to speak, that is first taken over with the disease. This is so that particular soul is forced into the emotional and other part of the mind, the part that is more metaphorical and the part that deals with the spiritual elements. Often when a soul is having a conflict and does not want to come to this side, they will develop Alzheimer's disease, so that on your plane they begin to see that there is no fear in death and that there is a very lovely component to the netherworld, so to speak. And it is the slow process that aids them in coming over. And then what happens is once they become aware of this, they become fascinated with it, and they may just step out without telling the body that it is time to go also. But this is a very, very latter stages, even in some who clearly have most of their soul on this side. There may be just a small element of the soul still there. This can be determined by looking into the eyes of the patient and determining whether there is any sparkle of life there or whether the soul has gone on.
Yes, the process you're describing seems as though it would have to be beyond the point of fear.
That is the point, is working to, yes, remove the fear. It is beyond the point of fear, but initially there is great fear, and the body works to counteract that fear.
All right. The next question which he sends is this: which acid or acids are important in Alzheimer's disease? Where and how must we measure them?
Let us answer by this way. We certainly are aware of amino acids being very important, but we see the color red being highly significant in the acid content. Let us look further for what we see. The question was how to measure, is that correct? Look for the fat content also.
The question was which acid or acids are important, and where and how must we measure them?
Very good. One moment. Okay, we are back to the way we began with amino acids, and we are going to send Dr. Phelan the following symbols. We see the color red, and yes, in a test tube we are seeing what appears to be blood, but it may be blood and acid in a test tube. We are sensing that with this color red in a test tube, we are sensing fat content very, very strong, also very much like one might do a check for cholesterol. There is another acid in the body that we are seeing as the color purple we are trying to get. We are going to say that with this color purple, we are seeing the word bile. We see also a microscope, and we are having the sense of a very large piece of black equipment. Let us see if we can we are feeling that there is a piece of equipment that is a very contemporary piece of equipment. Only in a few labs in the country, we do feel there is one close to Dr. Phelan. This is very large. This is a piece of equipment Well, we will pass this on. This is a piece of equipment very much on the order of what you would see for a CAT scan, but it is not the same thing, and it is black, and it is used for working with body chemicals in some manner. We are seeing the following numbers. We are seeing molecules, and we're getting a count of, we believe we're seeing molecules again. We're looking at fat and acid, and we're getting the number, something like, we are getting the number 10 to 1, and then 10/32. And we feel that we are seeing the count that needs to be measured.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any suggestions about how to...
There is one other thing that we are seeing. We are sorry to interrupt. We are seeing that this same type of information can be gotten from the hair follicle. There is information in the hair follicle that can, yes, this is what we're seeing with a microscope, that can give information on the health of the individual and in the future the body fat content. You may proceed.
Yes, I was wondering if there was a way that Dr. Phelan could attempt to identify this equipment that you've spoken of.
We feel that it is in Houston, a very large hospital there that is white or light in color, and is the part of the building we are looking at. May not be the front, but it is a slight crescent shape, so it is not fully circular. It looks to be, this part that we're looking at looks to be an old building. It is not a real new building. Let us see. It is, we see that it is a corner of a couple of main intersections. An intersection where there's a lot of trees, possibly a little hill on. We are looking for the direction. The southeast side. Let us see if we can be more specific. Wyndham, name, Wyndham, something like Miles Wyndham, and we do not know if that is Windham or Windham. Wyndham is a name we're feeling around this. It has not been used for the purposes we are describing. They are using it more. Yes, they're using it more with NASA, with some work in space. No one has thought of using this particular piece of equipment for Alzheimer's disease. It is used with the testing and some of the things they work with the astronauts.
Mm-hmm. Or this equipment that might then belong to NASA, is that?
This is very possible. As we look, the building, as we look, could certainly be a government building.
Mm-hmm. All right. In our previous set of questions around this topic for Dr. Phelan, the phrase, the casting off of waste and the fluid was used, and he's wondering if this phrase, the casting off of waste and the fluid, refer to the kidneys and how they should investigate this process.
Yes, yes. Again, by the urinalysis checks, they can be able to measure the fat. They need to look to develop very simple tests that they do not look at when checking urine specimen at this point in time. They need to look at the interrelationship between the fats and sugars of the body. They do it separately. They need to look together at this.
Mm-hmm. And the kidneys primarily are there, the focus of, and the urinalysis are the primary focus of that
Yes.
measurement. Uh-huh.
Yes.
All right. Also, in the last our last discussion, we talked about the importance of the alimentary, considering the whole alimentary canal, I think. But he asks the question: which part of the alimentary canal is most important? Again, in relation to Alzheimer's disease, what should we look for, and by what method?
Getting the lower part, if we're looking at something that's the word that we're seeing is something like a periscope. We are seeing a picture as if we look directly down at the base. We're seeing something large and black or dark in color. We feel that the problem with Alzheimer's disease is naturally common sense dictates that people look at the mind and they are not totally looking at the entire digestive system and what is going on there. This organ, I suppose, that we're looking at the base of the canal or close to it, looks very much like what you would say is a gizzard or something similar.
All right, very good. Dr. Phelan has sent one more question, but I believe we'll save it for the next session since it does not relate directly to this particular disease process.
This is fine. Let us just scan one moment for someone who has Alzheimer's disease to see if there's any information that in our disjointed conversations we are missing.
Okay.
We do know of such an individual, and we will go for just a moment and scan her body to see if we have omitted anything for Dr. Phelan.
Thank you very much.
We have arrived at the body. If you will give us a moment, we will start to scan. We feel a number of elements that are not important to Dr. Phelan's questions, so we will not pass them along. We do say in this particular individual that the relationship between sugar and fat was most significant, and that if you went back to her earlier days, you would see that she did not have a good balance between sugar and fat content of her body, and that she did not drink a lot of fluid, nor did she urinate frequently and work to cast off various parts and waste from the body. We do not see anything else in this particular one that would help us. What we will ask Dr. Phelan to do would be to give us a name and place of two of his patients that have Alzheimer's disease in order that we might scan and look for correlations between the two.
All right, very good. We'll make sure that he receives that information. We'd like now to bring this session to a close.
Very good.
All right.
If you will give us a moment. It has been a pleasure speaking with you
We've enjoyed
today.
it very much. Thank you.
Hello.
Are you back already? Okay, I'm going to give you a little signal anyway and talk you down through a count of 10. Remember that as you return to normal waking consciousness, you will be feeling alert and full of energy, all your senses working brightly and beautifully. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you'll feel in a state of balance and harmony. 10,
10,
9,
9, 8,
8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
and
1.
Awake and alert.
Awake. Yeah.
Wiggle fingers and hands,
Mhm.
feet,
Feet.
and we'll be right in. Okay, we won't cancel unless we have to, but if we do, we'll let you know and have you come back slowly.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, then remember your affirmation and go ahead and make your contact. And we'll wait.